Hello, welcome to part 3 of my little series on storytelling and career transition, career change. Malcolm has joined us. He will be supervising everything that goes on here today. Um, so I want to talk a little bit today about CVs, resumes, LinkedIn profiles, and how you can weave storytelling into them. I'll just take a step back and say, remember that a CV or a resume is a functional document that has a certain set of constraints that people are expecting to see. So this is not an opportunity to say, I have decided to throw out the concept of a resume and write you a narrative that is 8 pages long. This is not your chance to do that. Absolutely not. What it is a chance to do is be very, very thoughtful of every word you put into your resume so that there is a storytelling element that creates engagement and a bit of memorableness. That's probably not a word. So as my sweet friend Marilyn says, words count and words matter. And on a resume, every word matters because it is very concise and you've very little room to play, right? So how can you use storytelling? So I'm going to walk through a couple sections that I think could be important and then make a couple suggestions and then we'll close it up. So storytelling needs to be applied very strategically throughout your resume in ways that allow you to weave a bit of narrative in without getting super verbose. So some people still use this kind of professional summary at the top of their resume. Some of you don't. I totally understand that. It kind of depends on what you're applying for, what the purpose of your CV or resume is. But if you have this professional summary, keep in mind that it is setting the tone for the rest of the resume. If you start with MBA candidate with blah, blah, blah experience and number of years and blah, 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 that's nice. But it is an opportunity to really use the concept of who am I? Where have I been? Where am I going? We're up Story Mountain again, right? So you have 2 to 4 sentences. It's pretty tight, but you can tell a little bit more of your story and set the tone for why this resume is on this person's desk, right? So keep in mind that resumes, most people looking at resumes look at them for 6 to 20 seconds. It's real fast. As a hiring manager or a recruiter, you're looking for some key things, and you're either saying this goes in my look at it deeper pile or my not at all pile, and then I'm going to circle back to it and start to really read the detail, right? So 6 to 20 seconds is not long, so you can't just be I will now write you a novel. So the professional summary is one opportunity to set the tone and use storytelling. The next is really accomplishments, right? So today we're very much here's the job, here's my title, here's how long I've been there, and here are some bullets. What I see people do is get much more concise, and sometimes they just throw a KPI in there, improved revenue by 20% year over year. Okay, it's great. What I want to know when you throw that at me is, what was the problem you were solving? How did you solve it? And how was that impactful? Otherwise, the revenue could have just grown organically, and I don't know that. I'm not invested in your company. So you need to give me a little bit of story about what was the problem that you were there to solve? How did you go about that? And then how did you have that impact? So again, use a scalpel on the words, right? You have to be very, very, very precise, but tell a story. Don't just throw a KPI at me that is not indicative of you necessarily. It could be, but I don't know that as the reviewer. And then consider a section around project highlights. It gives you a little bit more room to play on a few key projects that maybe you've delivered, are super proud of, led, whatever. Again, I'm looking for a very small section that says, hey, yes, at this job, I led this project. This is why it was so great that we worked on it, and this was the role I played. So this is an opportunity to really tell me about the role you played, or tell the hiring manager about the role you played. And having a little bit separate section gives you a little space to play with that. And then a lot of people have sort of thrown out over the years this section on extracurriculars or volunteering, and there's some question about what to do there. For me, if there's room, and this is a longer form CV, I like a few bullets on you and what you love. If you love rock climbing and you're a, crazy, free form rock climber, I want to know that. If you've been playing guitar since you were 2, super interested. If you read 100 books a year, I want to know. These are connection points that could come up. Maybe they're not the most important thing to me when I'm first scanning your resume, but they may be something really important to me as we get into the interview process, right? And so having them can be real connection points between you and the interviewing team. And then a couple words about tailoring content. I think tailoring content can be really good. I think figuring out how to have different resumes under different circumstances is fine. I think the majority, it's probably 80-20, right? The majority of the content you're going to have should be the same because it is just factual and you should be able to storytell around that content. And then you want to tailor the content based on, if you're applying maybe to a pre-seed startup and applying to Amazon, maybe your resumes need to be a little different, a little bit more scrappy, a little bit more robust. I don't know. Like it just, you will know based on what the job description says and what you're really focusing on applying for, where to tailor the content. A caution that has happened many times. If you pull up the job description and pull exact wording out of the job description and dump it into your resume, and the writer of the job description is the person reviewing your resume, they will often recognize their own words. So I have written job descriptions, pulled up a resume, realized that the turn of phrase is exactly what's in the resume and gone, it's in my job description. That sounds familiar. Some people won't notice it, but often the author of the job description will be like, that sounds like something I wrote. It's I guess you could say it's supposed to be flattering, but it also feels like you're just using my own words to sort of make sure that I see that you meet the thing I listed. I would rather you tell me how you meet the thing I listed than regurgitate my words back at me. So just a comment. And then a couple of things to consider. I would consider creating a simple CV website, just a little website that has just your CV information. You can put some portfolio stuff there if you have it. You can talk about projects in more depth. You can dig into the volunteering and extracurriculars there as well. But typically, if you put links in your resume, I open them. If you have a GitHub repository, I open it. If you have a website with your CV in more flashy detail, I open it. If you have a portfolio, I open it. So I think it can be a really nice way to engage the hiring manager a bit more. Certainly I open it when I get to sort of the second stage of reviewing resumes, and that can really often get me kind of excited. And then the last thing I'll say is on cover letters. I'm not a big lover of cover letters because often they're 3-4 paragraphs long, and I'm like, I don't have this much time. However, if you write a cover letter, I would suggest be really concise, and it is a key place for storytelling. Where have you been? Why are you at my doorstep wanting a job on my team, right? So tell me that story. And again, I'm using myself as the hiring manager, but this is whoever you're dealing with, not just me. But use it very, very wisely and be very thoughtful about the reader not spending, minutes reading it, but maybe a minute and a half, right? So how can you tell me a story very, very quickly that makes me say, oh, this person might belong on my team? Tell me that story, right? So be strategic in how you weave storytelling into your CV, and then consider some of these other options. How do you think about tailoring content? How do you consider having a resume website? And then how do you use cover letters? Okay, this was a little wordier than the last couple, but I think this is important, and then we will move on to some other topics as the week progresses. Have a good day.